Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Councillor Claire Udy, and I'm chair of this Licensing Policy Committee. This meeting is held virtually in response to the limitations placed on governance by the COVID-19 pandemic. The City Solicitor has advised that this meeting will be run by reference to the model standing orders as set out in the Local Authorities Coronavirus Flexibility of Local Authority Meetings Regulations 2020. Number 392. Members of the public are invited to view this meeting, and there has been opportunity for written deputations to be submitted. Please can I ask members to keep their cameras on throughout the meeting, but turn your microphones off when not speaking. This is in my script, but if we know that you're there and your microphones are on, that's good enough. But if you leave for a substantive amount of the meeting, as far as I'm aware, you cannot vote on any recommendations if it's for a very long time or if you join halfway through one of our items. Officers, could you please turn on your cameras and microphones when you are speaking? Could I also ask members to use the chat facility and type RTS so I can see the order of those asking questions? For the sake of Councillor Mason, who is on his telephone, I'll come to you first, but then I'll come to you again at the end if that's easy, because it might be hard to interject. Is that okay with you?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Could I now ask members to introduce themselves? Councillor Scott Pater-Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Scott Pater-Harris, Vice Chair of the Licensing Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Ashmore. Sorry, I can't see the screen because I've got my script up. I didn't hear you then, Dave.
There we go. I said Councillor Dave Ashmore, Fratton Wall Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Atwell.
Chris Atwell, present, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tom Coles. I don't see a Tom. No, not at the moment. Councillor Jason Fasakali.
Yeah, I'm here, but I'm having problems. My screen is frozen. I'm going to log out and try and log back in again, okay?
Okay, thank you. We'll do some speaking. Well, I've done speaking before, but I'll just wait for you. Where are we now? Councillor John Ferret, is he here? Councillor Vernon Jackson, could you mute yourself, please?
Hi, I'm here.
I said mute yourself. You're near the end, but I'll take that now. Thank you.
Oh, I thought I heard my name called. My apologies, Chair.
Councillor, I acknowledge that John Ferret might not be here. Councillor George Fielding. Don't think he's here either. Councillor Hannah Hockaday, I think we've had apologies for now. Councillor Leo Madden.
Councillor Leo Madden, present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lee Mason.
Councillor Lee Mason, Caution Ward, present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Robert New. No. Councillor Benedict Swan.
Councillor Benedict Swan, Cottonwood and Anchorage Park, present.
Thank you. Councillor Linda Symes.
Present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Vernon Jackson. Wherever he is now. He was here.
Present and correct.
Thank you very much. Could officers now introduce themselves? Nikki Humphreys, Licensing Manager.
Good morning, members. Nikki Humphreys, Licensing Manager.
Thank you. Ben Attrell, Legal Advisor.
Good morning, everybody.
Oh,
Ben Attrell.
Thank you. Jane Dodino, Local Democracy Officer.
Good morning, panel. Jane Dodino, Local Democracy Officer.
Thank you. Ross Lee, Licensing Officer.
Good morning, everybody. Ross Lee, one of Nikki's licensing officers.
Thank you. We're due for Paul Darlow to turn up, but I guess it's for the item later on. So he's traffic and transport, as far as I'm aware. I can't see him on our meeting at the moment. Before we start the meeting officially, could I just have on record a huge thank you to Nikki and the team for their continued efforts with the licensing trade, license trade over COVID-19. The venue's reopening seems to be a huge success, and you've been sorting out complaints really promptly. I know it's even more stressful now with the 10 PM restrictions and some venues wanting to open earlier. but I know that work is ongoing to keep the city safe with the return of students. So thank you, Nikki, for that. We'll start for apologies for absence. Thank you. I know we had Hannah officially.
I haven't any others, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is any other groups willing to apologise for them, or do they not know? No. Okay. Do we have declarations of any interest, members? No. Okay, then we shall move on to minutes of the previous meeting. Let me just scroll. Held on Thursday, the 20th of February at 4 p.m. at Guildhall. From page 5, we're just scrolling through page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8. Any comments, members? I will take silence as complacency at this point.
Chair, I'm sorry, I've got 2 meetings on at exactly the same time, so I won't be here for all of the meetings. So my apologies. I've talked to Ben, and if I've not been here at the beginning of an item, that you're then deciding I can't vote. But I know that's the case. But I've just have to juggle these 2 meetings together. They're both PCC meetings, are on at exactly the same time.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Vernon Jackson. Just finishing minutes then, I've had no dissent. So those are signed off as far as we're aware. We'll start then with the implementation of the amended policy, magnetic council signage on licensed vehicles. Nikki, is this you? Take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. You have had 2 deputations that I understand have been distributed to you in advance of this meeting. I understand, would you like me to read out those deputations to you before we commence the report?
Yes, please.
All right. Firstly, members,
after you've read the report, I think that the rule is.
After?
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. So I'll start with the report for you, members, in terms of the magnetic council signage. As the report says, this report is intended to update the committee on its arrangements that are required to administer its amended policy to permit magnetic stickers or council signage on licensed vehicles. This policy was amended by this committee in February this year. This report was originally due to be considered in March 2020, but was postponed due to the coronavirus pandemic. The recommendations to you this morning are set out in paragraph 2, and they relate to logistical issues by amending licensing conditions, amendment of the penalty point system, and statutory requirements for charges related to the supply of signage. And the recommendation also encompasses the commencement date for magnetic signage to commence on vehicles and the subsequent review after 12 months. Paragraph 3 of your report, members, sets out the resolutions that the committee made in February this year. The report also sets out the further information for members to consider in relation to the following subjects. And I don't propose members to go through each of those in any detail because I know you have had the report in advance and have read the information. So today we're looking at conditions relating to the manufacturing and supply of council signage, driver and vehicle proprietor conditions, the point system, fees and charges, and the commencement date for the policy and the subsequent review. Members, as I said, I don't propose to go into any detail, but I obviously will welcome any questions that you might have if you need any clarification on those matters. Thank you.
Thank you. I just need to note that Jason Pasapoli is still not back in this meeting. I'm going to carry on with questions at this point. Councillor, just to go to Councillor Mason first because he's on his phone. Do you have any questions, Councillor Mason? Oh, deputations, Nikki.
Yes,
yeah. Deputations. You're on mute. Oh,
Thank you. I'm back. Certainly. Right. I'll go through the deputations for you. The first deputation in relation to this item is from Mr. Viv Young, an independent trade representative. He advises, well, he starts saying good morning to you all, and that he is supportive of the recommendation to allow private hire vehicles and Hackney Carriage vehicles to have the option of magnetic or permanent signage. He can empathise with the drivers who have had their drivers vandalised when parked up in sometimes not very secure locations. With the approval of magnetic signage, it will help to give some drivers a bit more peace of mind when they park up. I have secure parking, so I will be keeping permanent livery. It will be interesting to see how many take up the offer. I think the majority will stay with permanently fixed ones. No council livery, no work. I will relay all conditions by email to drivers. And secondly, members, you've also had deputation on these proposals from Mr. Peter Sutherland, who speaks on behalf of the Uber drivers, not Uber company, the drivers working for Uber. He states, I have concerns regarding the proposed trial period of 12 months and the suggestions by licensing as regards data collection during the trial period, and you reference that at 3.17 of the report. Her first point, if it is reasonable that such data be collected and presented to the committee at the end of the trial period, then it must also be reasonable that a full explanation of said data be given with regard to the accuracy, quality and sources. 2. Furthermore, I would suggest that it is in the interests of licensing and the trade that any data collected be shared with the trade reps, who in turn can disseminate any findings to their members, and in doing so help ensure a full understanding of any issues and compliance with the full requirements. This can be done on an ad hoc basis as required, or at licensing consultative group meetings. 3. An explanation should be given by licensing as to what exactly are the additional processes that they plan to initiate. If licensing are to police the policy changes, and they must, then the processes must be clear and transparent. 4. Given the high number of non-PCC licensed vehicles working within the city, the majority of whom are not required to display any livery, the greater public can be easily mistaken as to the identity of the licensing authority controlling such vehicles. 5. As such, all and any complaints of failure to comply must be fully verifiable. Such data cannot reasonably include random telephone reports of vehicles failing to display livery, not least as this is so obviously open to abuse. 6. At the very least, a plate number must be supplied, and preferably a photo of said vehicle, or even better, some dashcam footage. Any breach of licensing regulations must be provable, or at the excuse me, members, at the very least be beyond all reasonable doubt. Guilt needs to be proven, not assumed, and hearsay is unacceptable by any standards. And that's the end of the deputation for this item, members.
Thank you very much. Since Councillor Fasakali has still not joined us, unfortunately, I don't think he'll be able to participate within the item today because we're quite a ways into it. Councillor Robert New, you've joined the meeting. Do you have any declarations of interest at all?
No, none.
Thank you. Since you've also joined quite a way into our report, I'm afraid you cannot vote on this item, but you can certainly join the next one.
Chair, just on that issue, how can Councillor Vernon Jackson be in 2 meetings and be away from his screen yet can probably vote on the item?
We're not letting him.
Brilliant. Okay, can you just make that clear?
Just to make that absolutely clear, I did speak to the leader yesterday because I did get notification that he had a diary clash and might be coming in and out of this meeting. So I gave very clear advice that members that are not present for the entirety of the agenda item cannot take part in the decision making, unfortunately. And so that applies across the board.
Thank you, Ben. Just sorry, Chair, about that. Sorry about the introduction.
No, that's fine. Because I say Councillor Ben, actual Ben. Members that are joining later, they're still able to ask questions and give comment. You're saying yes? Cool. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to members' questions then. I said that I'll go to Councillor Mason first. Do you have any questions at the moment? I will come back to you later.
Not at the moment, thank you. Also, bear with me, I'm using the same device for doing the agenda as I am for using the phone call, so it might take me a second or two swapping back and forth screens.
Okay, I'll come back to you at the end then. Thank you. Councillor Scott Peter Harris, and then on with Councillor Madden.
It's just more of a question for Nikki, Chair, about the points that Mr. Sutherland made, mainly point 1 and 2. Would you be happy to accommodate those points, Nikki, about sharing the information on a rolling basis with the trade on livery, just so we can have an idea of where this trial period is going?
I mean, certainly we can share anonymised data with members. Obviously, I wouldn't be pinpointing any particular drivers in that, but yes, there would be. We can create some reporting mechanism that we can share.
Yeah, I just think it would be a good use of the consultative group as well if we use redacted data as well. And we can get an idea of if it works, if it doesn't, just so they actually have peace of mind and they can feed it out to the trade. So
Yes,
that's all really I've got to add.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Harris. Councillor Madden, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
Is that it? Hello? Hello? My question was more or less the same as Councillor Scott Harris, in the sense that Viv Young has said that he accepts the recommendations, which is fine. But I was going to ask the question, I think it's been answered by Nikki, what she thought of the deputation from the Uber rep and whether those could be taken on board. But I think you've given an answer to that, so I'm happy with that.
Members, would it help to clarify as well in terms of the concerns raised in terms of what data, our service from a regulatory function, and in way that we investigate complaints, we would require not just ad hoc random evidence. We would have data on particular vehicles, particular drivers, and that would be the sole means of us analysing that data report back to you. It wouldn't just be ad hoc comments that we receive. It would all be evidence based.
Thank you very much. Ben, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, just had to unmute. I think the other important thing he mentions about hearsay not being admissible. Hearsay is admissible in licensing proceedings. It's just a matter of how much weight, and all the evidence that's gathered will be presented at the conclusion of the 12-month period, and it will be there to be able to be scrutinised and be considered. And if there are comments that need to be made at that stage by the trade, then they will be able to do so and will have that opportunity. And once the committee have heard those comments and looked at the evidence, they can attach what weight you deem fit once you've considered it in the round. So it was just to make that clear as well.
Thank you, Ben. Nikki, I just had a brief question. In that information, could we also have information of people that have phoned in and it turns out they're from outside of the city, so nothing can be done about it? Because I feel like there might be lots of reports coming in quite quickly at the beginning, and then we're realising that they're all out-of-town drivers, etc.
We don't tend to keep that data because obviously if there was a complaint about a vehicle that wasn't licensed by us, we would refer that complaint to the relevant licensing authority. So I'm not sure how I can collate data of vehicles that are not licensed by us.
maybe just the number that have come in, so you can just go as a percentage of the complaints on a whole. So you don't need to keep the data, just kind of like mark off that someone's complained about an out-of-town car. Does that sound reasonable? So we know as a percentage as a whole at the end.
I'm sure we can work with our IT people in terms of our reporting mechanism to see if we can create a specific code to allocate those matters to.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mason, I'll come to you. Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll move to members' comments then. Do members have comments at all on this matter? I'm watching the chat. Any hands? No. Ben, put your hand down, please. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Madden, would you like to make a comment? Microphone. Thank you.
Yeah, can I say, we went through this in great detail back in, whenever it was, February. We've seen the comments from the reps from the licensing or whatever, the taxi trade. And I would move the recommendations as they stand.
Thank you very much, Councillor Madden. Would anyone like to second that? Councillor Scott Peter Harris, thank you very much.
Yeah, happy to second, Chair.
Am I allowed to take silence as assent in this moment? Ben, please nod at me. Do you want me to go through names? I'm happy to do silence.
I think it'd probably be clearer, Chair, if you did just double check with everybody.
Blimey.
If you can't see them.
Me. Well,
and it's a matter for you. I mean, it's either that, or you can say if anybody objects, perhaps they raise their hand, and then you can see that. As long as everybody has the facility to do that.
They do. If anyone would like to object to these recommendations, please speak now or forever hold your peace. Right then, I would grant that as passed. Thank you very much. We're on to the next. Just scrolling down my notes. Next item here, thank you very much, is the local government consultation and review of Hackney carriage stands. Ross, are you giving the report for this? We've had Paul Darlow join. I hear that, Paul, you're here for more questions and comments. Is that correct?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Paul Darlow. I'm the Traffic and Network Manager representing the Highway Authority.
Thank you very much. So if you could take it away, thank you.
Members, good morning. The review of taxi stands doesn't take place very often, and it's fair to say it's been about 7 years since you received proposals. So what we've done is earlier in the year, we met with the trade reps, and in particular Viv Young, and Paul and his team and myself spent a day going around the city, and we came to some common consensus on some parts of the recommendations from Viv Young, and there were others that we simply couldn't agree on. So what the report tells you, you've got a threefold proposal. The proposals, first of all, are to appoint some new stands. The second part is to vary some existing stands. And the third part is to consider the revocation of some what we would now consider to be obsolete stands in the city. Just to go through the report quickly, this is a discretionary function that you have. You may appoint stands at your discretion on the highway and on private land for all or any part of the day. The two caveats that you have by law are that you must consult with the Chief Officer of Police, and you must get the absolute consent of the Highway Authority. Without that, the proposals cannot go ahead, hence Paul being with you today. In terms of appointing stands, you've got to be careful that you don't appoint stands where they block the entrances to premises, impede a PSV vehicle, or interfere unduly with the provision of bus stops. In terms of the costs of stands, the report tells you that you can recover the costs via the fees for Hackney Carriage proprietors. And once you've made your proposals, you have to give 28 days by way of public notice for any comments to come back to you. Finally, in terms of the report, this is quite a quirky matter in that normally all licensing functions are delegated to you, Chair, and your committee, but this is one of the two things where, for some bizarre reason, the functions and responsibilities regulations went a bit astray and said that they are actually an executive function, not a council function. So what we're recommending that you do is, if you like the proposals and agree with them, that you refer the matter to the MIS for a corporate decision to be made before the proposals are then put in for public consultation. So on that basis, Appendix 1, if I can whiz through what we've got, and Paul can help me out hopefully with any technical matters, but it is all fairly straightforward. Cambridge Road, the old Students' Union rank, it's not been very well served, to be fair, in the last 7-8 years, so we're asking you to revoke that one. Number 2, Edinburgh Road, we're asking you to slightly reduce the rank from 4 to 3 cars and to reduce the Fountain Street feeder. You can see why we're asking to reduce the rank, because if you look at the photograph, you can actually see the third car, it's the fourth car, the rear end is actually sticking out into almost the highway. And there have been reports of buses having near misses with the back end of taxis, so we're asking that to be reduced to 3 cars. On the next page, Gunwharf Quays, Chair, we're asking for, if you like, your consent and member consent to write to Land Securities about this strange position that we have where the trade are concerned about the raised curb on this private piece of land, which effectively stops the big 5-seater, multi-seater vehicles from coming away from the rank if they've got, for example, a wheelchair-bound passenger. If they're, say, 5th in line, they can't come off the rank until they get to the front, which makes the rather pointless. So we're asking if you'll be prepared to allow us to draft a letter for you to write to Land Securities to ask them to consider taking away the curb edge for this rank on private land. Commercial Road number 5, that's a new proposed rank to basically help out the late night economy, particularly for the area of Wiggle. Albert Road number 6, that's a proposed new car nighttime rank. Willis Road is the reflection of the former Stanhope Road rank and a new rank, but what we would ask you to do is actually consider that to be a 6-car rank, not a 9-car rank. Elm Grove is not supported. This was something that Mr. Young and his colleagues wanted, but the Highway Authority do not support that, so I think that has to be deferred. Number 9, the Hard Interchange, we're just asking you to adopt the rank, which is now in the Transport Hub. Fratton Way, we're recommending that you note that it could be approved once the buses stop running, if that happens again. London Road is a proposed new car rank moving south and to revoke the old Derby Road Service Road rank. Kingston Road, not supported by the Highway Authority. The Hard is not supported by the Highway Authority and indeed us members for the reasons that there are 12-car taxi stands nearby, there are drop-off facilities nearby, and we are concerned about vehicle access to the common hard slipway. Pasteur Road is something I'm trying to remember. I think the leader asked us to get involved with the facilities manager, a guy called Trevor Mose at QA. So we met with him earlier in the year, and they've given a thumbs up approval for a rank on their land, but of course it still needs to be adopted by you accordingly. So that's a request for a new 3-car 24-hour stand in Pasteur Road. And finally, the old chestnut of Albert Road, the King's Theatre rank, we're asking that to be made a permanent 24-hour stand to try and help out with enforcement and to recognise this rather booming nighttime economy area. So those are all the proposals. Please don't ask me any questions of a highway matter because they will be on my pay scale, but that Paul will be able to help you. But if I can offer you anything else, I'm here.
Thank you. We have a deputation from Mr. Viv Young, so could you read that out, please? Because I think it goes into detail on each rank on his form. Thank you.
I've got the, if it helps members, I've got the deputation up if that would be quicker for me rather than Ross having to find it, if you're happy for me to read that out to you. So Viv Young has said, Cambridge, if we go through the ranks in order, number 1, Cambridge rank, he's saying revoke. Number 2, Edinburgh Road. Many years ago, this was increased to 4 cars to enable the 4th car to be seen from the feeder rank. At the start of Fountain Street, there is a dropped curb. We therefore have to sit back when a bus is parked outside the old Traff Club. We cannot see the 3rd car, hence why it went to 4 cars. If we creep forward, we are then across the drop curb. You say 4th car is causing obstruction to buses. I would say that when a bus is parked there, it is preventing a taxi gaining legal access to the rank. And he questions any reported accidents there. Rank 3, Fountain Street. With the demise of the area, there is no need for a 12-car feeder rank. 4 cars is fine. 4, Gunwharf. Private land. The owners have no interest in the needs of the wheelchair disabled. A couple of years ago, a chap called Sean Sweeney from Gunwharf undertook an undertaking at a T&T meeting to resolve this by getting the curb barrier removed by Christmas. The meeting, I think, was in March 2018. Following on with meetings between myself, Councillor Lynn Stagg and Gina Perryman from PCC Disability Department, we still have the central barrier. 5, Commercial Road will be an assistance to the area. The suggested times are fine, 2400 to 0500 hours. 6, Albert Road opposite the Wedgwood Rooms. Disappointingly, only being recommended from 2400 hours to 0600 hours. I believe this would be viable from 2000 or 2100 hours. Not a very busy bus stop. The bus can pull up behind, it's only for a few seconds. We have to contend with buses, coaches parked on the ranks at Clarence Pier, King's Theatre, brackets PCC, P&R bus, close brackets, Cosham High Street, rail replacement buses. Give the earlier time a try. Transport in Pompey is not all about bus, bus, bus. Number 7, Willis Road. The taxi rank situation has been useless since the inception of the club 10 to 12 years ago, possibly longer. Please ensure that the first car on the rank is visible from Station Street. Hidden halfway down a side road negates the effectiveness viability of a rank. The suggested hours 2300 to 0600 are okay, and 6 cars are okay. Elm Grove. If this crazy segregated cycle lane goes ahead, there will still be bus stops on the route. So question is, if buses can be accommodated, why not taxis? Licensing comments that there is no rank provision in this area. Hard Interchange, adopt please. 10, Fratton Way, no point being a part-time rank, maybe revisit when subsidised bus service comes to an end. 11, London Road. This is a needed rank in the middle of our North End. This will be visible and viable. There is not a rank in the spine of our city, Hillsey Roundabout to Fratton Bridge. This proposal receives support from the Highway Authority. Approval is needed. Get the rank up and running. Worry about moving the shelter when funds permit. If PCC own the service road, you can have pay and display. 12, Kingston Road, give it a try. I won't object if it's moved later for this proposed bus route. Try it. There is no rank provision in this area. 12, the Hard. I know you won't support this rank, but please note that rail replacement buses block access to the Common Hard slipway. Highway Authority go on to say the possibility of buses being obstructed turning right from Clock Street is absolute rubbish. Bus easily turns right when bus parked opposite. but amazingly can't manage the turn with a car there. Pasteur Road, QA Hospital, approved in principle by landowner and supported by PCC licensing department. So what happens now? King's Theatre rank, supported by licensing and highways, needs approving. Can I ask that this rank, brackets 24-hour, the entire 4-car area be painted red to discourage illegal parking? No doubt engineers department will say you can't do this, or you can't do that, not in highway code or road signage markings, etc. But you have a multicoloured crossing in Dewsburg Way. Are these legal road markings? And that's thanks for now, Viv. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Councillor Madden had his hand up at the beginning of that. I'll you to unmute.
Right. Yeah, hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, I was going to suggest we did one at a time, but there you are. We'd have been finishing by now, perhaps. But I am a bit confused about location 7, Willis Road. Both Ross and Mr. Young talk about a 6-car stand, but my report says an 8-car stand. So I want to know what I'm voting on. Is it a 6-car stand? I don't know where Mr. Young got that from, but I've read the report and I can't see it anywhere. Have I missed something?
Chair, do you want me to answer that? Yeah, you are right, Councillor, that the original number was higher, but we think that perhaps 6 cars would be better, simply because if the taxis were all the way down Willis Road opposite the entrance to the nightclub, there effectively would be nowhere for mum and dad to park to come and pick up daughter or DJs or anybody bringing equipment. So what we're suggesting is that you reduce the number to 6 cars, which will leave space behind for dropping off and picking up.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Harris.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just literally going to go through, it's 2 ranks. It's rank 6, which is the Albert Road one, where the recommendation is 11:30 till 6 AM. And that's the licensing authority comment, and the highways comment are going from 12 o'clock till 6 AM. I know we're quibbling over one bus stopping at 10 to 12 at night, which I think is a bit trivial, to be honest. So I'm wondering if the highways authority can explain to me why we are basically letting the buses have their way.
So that's part of all of these proposals were circulated around to all of the different teams within transport, and the public transport team were very clear that they didn't want taxis using the bus stops when the buses are still in service, and their recommendation was to avoid conflict between taxis and buses, that the taxi rank is only operational after the last bus has departed the stop.
Okay, so what you're saying, Mr. Dardo, is that buses take precedence over taxis. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that potentially, if both are able to use the bus stop, then potentially there is a conflict, and particularly as most of the bus stops have got accessible, they are accessible for people with wheelchairs, etc., with different height curbs.
Okay.
And actually, if the bus can't pull up at that location, then potentially that makes a difficulty for some passengers.
Yeah, there are several Hackney carriages that also are capable for wheelchair users as well. But the question I actually asked was, do buses take precedence over taxis? Yes or no?
I don't believe that's a PCC policy that exists.
Okay, thank you. And on to number 8, Councillor UD, which is the Elm Grove one. It's just a point actually that Mr. Young's made about the segregated cycle lane, but there will be room for buses on there. So I just think it's a bit of a short-sightedness that while we're doing all this work for cycle lanes, that we could potentially look at possibly accommodating a small rank on Elm Grove. It's just it's a benign point, but I just think that it just seems that the Highways Authority are probably looking at this a little bit narrow-mindedly. It's more for the cycle than it does seem to be for people who get around the city via taxi. But it's just a point. I mean, if you can get a bus down there, you can have a bus stop. Why can't you have a small taxi rank?
I think it's fair to say that Elm Grove at the moment and the installation of the cycle lanes is a work in progress. It's an active project, and it's been quite difficult already with the design work for that. And I think it's been recommended that while that work is in progress, that a rank is not established. That actually, as things develop, and if that became more of a permanent facility down there, then that potentially could be looked at.
With the greatest respect, Mr. Darlow, we're talking about permanent ranks at the moment, right? And this is about permanent ranks for drivers. What you're doing in Elm Grove is actually a temporary measure. It's going through the Active Travel Fund, which is from the government. So that's a temporary measure. That's not permanent. We're talking about stuff that's going to be here for longer term. This Elm Grove cycle lane could actually be an absolute nightmare. Couldn't work. We just don't know. But we're talking about permanency. So you're actually putting a temporary project in front of a more of a permanent fixture. You know, can you see my point? What I'm making here?
Yeah, and that's why it's our recommendation that while this is temporary, and the government's funding is for temporary measures that could look to become permanent in the future. So you're absolutely right that it's a trial, and we've got some money from the government to experiment with this, which is why it's our recommendation that the taxi rank is deferred until we've got further evidence, until we've seen how this works or not.
Okay. Wouldn't it be an idea to do a temporary taxi rank to see how that works on the actual road with the cycle lane?
I can take that away to the project manager and ask them to consider that as part of the design.
I think it would be a good idea. Thank you. Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you for that. I've got a hand up from Councillor Linda Symes.
Yes, on item 8, as I understand it, all parking will be removed from Elm Grove and Kings Road, and only buses allowed to stop while this trial is ongoing. There are supermarkets, there are all sorts of shops there. Surely a taxi will be needed by some of these people. If they can't park in the road and they want to go to Tesco Express or somewhere else and their shopping is heavy, they'll need a way to get home. If they don't want to catch the bus for whatever reason, which they're perfectly entitled, wouldn't it be better if they could just get into a taxi, because you're closing off other means of them getting to the shops by putting this cycle lane in? And so, as Councillor Scott Harris said, surely we could have a temporary taxi rank as well.
I think just to respond to that, I think one of the differences between obviously a bus stop and a taxi rank is that obviously the bus pulls up to pick up and discharge passengers, whereas a taxi rank actually taxis are by their very nature ranked and stationary there for potentially a period of time. And I think that's in terms of the traffic and all of the different modes keeping moving, and the bus is stopping temporarily, that is seen as compatible, whereas a taxi rank with taxis stopped there for a period of time could be more difficult. But once again, as I said, I can take that away and ask for the project manager and the highways designers to look at see if they can incorporate such a facility.
Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Symes? You're on mute, sorry.
So, yeah, I think it would be good if we could have regular updates on how this trial is going ahead, what's happening there, and how the shops down there are managing to function when it's almost impossible on foot for anyone to do a decent amount of shopping in that street, because they won't be able to carry it home. The parking around there on those side streets is absolutely horrendous at the moment. This will just add more to those streets that already can't manage very well. And I think it's quite unfair to put any form of travel ahead of people who don't have cars and don't have bikes, and they should be able to access a taxi if they don't want to get on a bus.
Thank you very much. Councillor Scott Pater Harris.
It's just more so on the point that Councillor Symes has made regarding the temporary rank, and I'm grateful that Mr. Darlow is going to take that away and speak to the traffic engineers and see if we can work something out. It doesn't have to be a temporary rank, doesn't have to be massive. You could put a 3-car rank in just to see how it works, to see what the traffic flow is, and report back. I think if we're going to look at this in a holistic approach for the city, for people getting around, that we can't leave taxi drivers behind. I think there is a common conception amongst the Hackney trade especially that they get left behind, and I think that comes down to the lack of confidence that they have in the traffic and transportation team, especially from a lot of drivers I speak to. There is a lack of confidence, and I think this rank issue had to come to this committee to get it dealt with quickly. And a lot of the ranks, I think, and you'll agree with me, Chair, are quite sensible. There's a lot of sensible proposals there. There's only a couple there that obviously that I've picked up on. I mean, 6 and 8 really. I think as well I had 15 down, which I actually think is the last one, which is the King's Theatre rank. Actually, I think that's quite a good idea, and I'm grateful that the Highways Authority are going to look into that, because that is quite often a pinch point for picking up and dropping off. So I think that's a really, really sensible one. But that's all I've got from at the moment. I think we've only had one recommendation change, which is on item 7, which is to go from 8 down to 6. So I'm quite happy to support that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Mason, do you have any questions?
Well, I was going to ask the question that Viv Young asked about the painting taxi ranks red. Is there anything in the regulations that prevent that? And I'll just really clear an explanation on that, please.
Yeah, I can answer that. So under the TSRGD, which is Traffic Signs Rules and General Directions, it is explicitly listed in that document, which is issued by the DFT, about the size, colour of such markings, and that's what we would conform with.
So they're only allowed to be one colour,
yeah.
And okay.
I think the I know Mr. Young has made a comparison with the rainbow crossing in Dewsburg Way. However, they are not an informational or directional sign or symbol for traffic or road users. Effectively, they could be classed as road art rather than something that comes under the regulations.
Thank you. Just to comment on number 8, I'm widely in agreement over the active travel stuff. Obviously, I'm a fan of the active travel, but I don't think we should be kind of restricting having a taxi route, because taxis are public transport as well. But yeah, I'm trying to think about that. Sorry if I don't have the knowledge, but you know, up near house, is there a taxi route near house or not? There is? No? Has there been consideration of that? Because sometimes that's open to, well, obviously it isn't at the moment because of COVID, but it's open till 2, 3 in the morning on Fridays and Saturdays, and there is quite a lot of free traffic because people are in sprinkles, etc. I guess maybe to come back and have a look, maybe if there was a rank around that area, it might be easier for people just looking at that. So I'm in agreement with Peter Harris about the change into 8, was it? And then going through. So regarding the Elm Grove rank, when can we meet again to have a discussion about this? This is the next question. Do we wait about a month after the active travel has been implemented where we could look again and have a discussion? Councillor Peter Harris, do you have an opinion? Oh, Councillor Dave Ashmore has something, but Councillor Peter Harris, could you?
I think it's a good idea, Chair. To be fair, I think it should be a rolling programme, which is the common word that they like to use in TNT these days. I think we should certainly look at Elm Grove. I think you make a really good point, especially where there is quite a lot of parking on Elm Grove that's going to come away for the cycle lanes anyway, from the sounds of things. I think the area you've identified would be something that I think we should look at. So yeah, I think definitely we should come back and look at this possibly down the line. But when that is, it depends obviously on traffic and Mr. Darlow's team and what they're doing and how long it takes to implement.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dave Ashmore.
Hello. Yeah, more of a comment really than a question. I think, as you've mentioned yourself, Chair, the taxis are kind of an understated form of public transport, and we are looking to improve our air quality. We are looking to reduce congestion in the city. So I think, yeah, working with the trade and seeing where we can get taxi ranks and seeing if there's feasibility of new ones and this, that and the other means that, if we can have it so that buses, cycle lanes and more people use taxis, it means that they will be less emphasis on owning private cars, which obviously helps to reduce congestion in the streets and helps the air quality there. So yeah, I'm all for that, and I'm all for investigating where we can put them more, and if we can integrate the Elm Grove one with the what do you call it, the temporary cycle lane thing that we're hoping will last longer, obviously. But if we can work side by side for that, more the merrier.
Thank you, Councillor Ashmore. Councillor Vernon Jackson.
Yeah, it's just a question about what consultation there've been with ward councillors about any of these proposals and what their comments were.
Guess that's down to Ross.
At the moment, no consultation with ward councillors, simply because these are not firm proposals. These are advisory aspects, and it's for you today, Chair, to make a decision on whether you want to move forward on all or any of them. So what we're saying is that because you're not masters of your own house here, you're, if you like, acting as a conduit and recommending via the MIS for these matters to be formally consulted on. So this is the pre-consultation stage. We're simply asking for your opinion as to whether you want us to move forward on these trade and other proposals, and the consultation will be the next stage with the MIS, and then public consultation via an advert in the news, and we can then write toward councillors.
Ross, that's helpful. I just think it might have been useful. I know we're not the final decision makers, but it might have been useful just to get ward councillors' view at this point to feed in, because they may be enthusiastic, they may not be. But okay, that's something to learn for next time. Thanks.
No.
Thank you. Just coming back to Councillor Lee Mason before we kind of look at recommendations. Do you have any other questions before I move on?
No, thank you.
Thank you. So it looks at the moment we're in agreement, apart from the change of number 8 on whatever rank that was. What was it? I'm scrolling through. Scott.
Elm Grove Chair, that was number 8. So I think what we're looking to recommend, I don't know if you want to just clarify this with me.
Yeah.
7 to change, go from 8 down to 6.
Yeah, that's it.
Do you think is what's been agreed? I think 8 we should, I don't know if we can do this, but I'm pretty sure we can actually. We can make a note on the recommendation that we feel that there should be some sort of temporary rank, if possible, with acceptance from the Highway Authority under that. So basically we put the emphasis back on the Highway Authority, which I think is a fair point for consultation down the line. And I think that's it, really. I think there's nothing else really to change.
Well, I'm happy to second those proposals from you. I will move it to a vote. If any councillors have any way of dissent, that is moved formally. Members, thank you. I just want to do a quick AOB. I had a discussion with Councillor Mason about greening of plastics and stuff and greening of the licensing objectives. I did say I'd try and get it in today, but we couldn't because of the short time. I've been informed by Nikki that there is supposed to be a policy review due. I know it's in 2022, but I am thinking about greening of the licensing objectives, but I'm sure we can have a discussion at our next licensing policy if everyone would like to have a think and get back to Nikki and myself and Scott. That'd be lovely. Thank you.
Definitely in favour of that.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Ashmore. So we're done quite early. Everyone have a lovely morning and weekend, and I'll hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.